Good morning, welcome to Tony's Bonsai. I've got 5 top tips for you today for anybody who's new to bonsai, the things that I wish I'd known when I was starting my bonsai journey. So let's start with number 1, which is how to bend branches and trunks. If you're anything like me, one of the first things you'll be wanting to do in bonsai is bending branches and trunks using wire to create some interesting shapes and get creative. So there's a basic principle that I want to talk about and show you, but first of all I just need to apply this wire to this branch. It's a really simple process. Once you get used to wiring like this, it takes very little time, but you only get that experience from doing it. So this is my first tip, and the tip is don't bend trunks and branches up near the end where it's easy to do. Get the bending lower down. So a lot of people, they start off with a branch like this and they go, oh, I'll bend it here and I'll bend it there. Oh, that looks nice, it's got some nice movement. But the movement is up at the top, and we want the interesting movement generally to be lower down. So I've used thick enough wire to allow me to bend the base of this branch, and so with something like this I'm getting the movement in nice and low down there. So that's where the movement wants to be. This in time will probably be removed, so I don't really need to bother about this top section. I can add a bit of movement to it if I want, like that. But it's not really necessary because down here is the action, and this takes a bit of time to get used to. This silver birch is a good example of a tree that I've wired lots of nice movement low down on the trunk. So I had to use a thick wire to do this, but it's really created an interesting shape to the trunk, and I'm going to chop it here eventually, so whatever happens up at this top doesn't matter. Tip number 2, which is don't chop trees too high, follows on nicely from the first tip. And when I first started bonsai, I had lots of trees and I chopped the main trunk off too high up, whereas realistically I would have been better chopping them much lower down. So my thinking with this tree was, this is a nice trunk, this can be a branch, and I chopped it up here and turned one of the branches into the new apex of the tree. But in hindsight, now I know more, I would be much better chopping this tree here and allowing this to become the new trunk. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'll now tidy this cut up with a pair of hybrid cutters and seal it with cut paste. Tip number 3 is make your own bonsai soil. It's very easy to make proper bonsai soil, the inorganic stuff. It costs an absolute bomb. I know it costs a lot in the US, it costs loads of money here in the UK. And if you're just starting out in bonsai, there's really no need to use very expensive things like lava rock and akadama and all that kind of stuff. You can use a simple mixture like this and it works a treat. Here you can see my soil. It's nice and airy, it allows lots of oxygen and water into it, and the trees really like it. Of course, if you've got a beautiful specimen tree and you've spent a lot of money or a lot of time on growing it, of course you're better using the proper bonsai soil. It is superior to this, but this video is really to help people just starting out in bonsai, and at the stage you're at, there's really no need. I'm going to be doing a video coming out soon about how I make my own bonsai soil, so if you want to see that and learn how to make your own soil, hit subscribe, and that'll be being shared on my channel shortly. Tip number 4 is in relation to bonsai pots. I've got hundreds of trees. I only actually own one proper bonsai pot. It's this one. It cost me about £40 and it's only small. I love the texture of this pot and the colours. It's gorgeous. And if money's no object, get yourself out and buy loads of these gorgeous pots. That's what I'd do. But if money's a bit tight, there's loads of other options. It's perfectly fine to just use a normal garden plant pot, as you can see with this cascading hawthorn. It does the job. I mean, it doesn't look as good as a lovely pot, but as I say, while you're developing and growing trees, it's absolutely fine to keep them in containers like this. And so tip number 4 is the humble washing up bowl. So I've got a collected oak tree in this washing up bowl. I've probably got about 30 of these. You just drill some holes in the bottom and away you go. It's like a ready-made bonsai pot. This oak was only collected earlier this year and it's put on lots of leaves. It's had a really healthy growing year. So it's really liking it in this washing up bowl with my soil. It's doing great. If it looks a bit not sophisticated enough for your garden, what you can get is an alternative. Such as this. This is a purpose-made plastic bonsai pot. It's slightly better than washing up bowl because it's a bit shallower. It's got feet and the holes are already drilled in. It does work really well, but it's about 10 times the price. But if you've not got many trees, you could pick something like this up online. And if you're wondering what this wire is for, it was just to stop the squirrels that were getting in the tub earlier in the year. And tip number 5 is get to know your local garden centres and tree nurseries. There's loads of bargains available. Here's a little hornbeam that I picked up last year for £1. This tree wasn't on offer, it was just the price. In the UK we sell these little whips every spring in garden centres. They cost £1 to £2, and over the years you can just develop them up into bonsai. And again, going back to tip number 1, I've wired some nice movement into it, nice and low down, and I've done the chop nice and low to start developing that into a bonsai for the future. Here's a tree I bought in the spring. It cost me £3.50. I splashed the cash because it was a purple leafed beech. But as it turns out, it isn't. They must have seen me coming. But even so, for only a couple of pounds, you know, I've got a tree which I'm going to develop into a raft style. So in a future video, next spring, I'm going to be planting this at this angle and creating a very interesting composition. So there's lots of things we can do with very cheap material. Get out there, get to know your garden centres and rummage about and see what they've got. And I've got a bonus tip for you. And here's the bonus tip. Be nice to your family and friends. You never know what they've got in the garden. This was a tree, an oak tree from my sister's garden. It was just growing, a squirrel had planted it. I applied some wire, again, nice and low to get some nice movement in the lower part. And I'm growing this on. And I think this has got some real good potential. And that's for the best price. Nothing. Here I am amongst about half of my trees. This is the material that I work on in my videos, you know, as I sort of continue learning and continue along my bonsai journey. My main hope of this video, although it's called sort of 5 tips, the main point of it is to hopefully inspire you to get out there, get yourself a couple of trees and a pot and a bit of wire and start your own bonsai journey. It's absolutely fantastic. The community's amazing, and hopefully, you know, you'll soon have no space in your garden either. So, as always, thanks for joining me. Have a great day, and I'll see you soon.